LFOD 91.5. Make sure you turn it high.
LFOD, Live Free or Die Radio. You already know.
LFOD Radio, Live Free or Die Radio. Bang.
LFOD Radio, Live Free or Die.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, yeah, say hi back to me. I like that. Hi. I am Ariel. I am the arts engagement producer for The Artery. The Artery is the arts and culture team here at WBUR. This event has been a little while in the making. Hopefully everybody here knows Sam from LFOD. He's been hosting this panel for years now about the state of New England hip hop. And it just so happens that our very amazing music critic, sitting right here, Amelia Mason, wrote a really in-depth, incisive piece on whether or not Boston is hostile to hip hop, which I think we all have our own individual opinions about. But that's just to say that this conversation kind of started a while ago for us. And Sam approached us with collaborating to have the panel this year here live so that you guys get to meet all of the amazing panelists face to face. So thank you. And we're going to be starting off with a conversation with Amelia and Sam. And I will let you guys go ahead and get started.
We're going to keep this part quick because, you came to see the panelists. But we just wanted to chat a little bit. This is a first time for us, first time we've collaborated in this way. And Sam, I would just love for you to tell us a little bit about kind of like what started this panel. You've been doing something like this on your podcast, a discussion about the state of New England hip hop. This is the 4th year. So kind of what caused that? What started that?
All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming out, braving the weather, all that. I know people came a long way for this. So shout out to y'all. So this started, to my knowledge, like about 5 years ago, on Twitter, Mr. Dart Adams and Tim LaRue having a very public discussion about management strategies. And the guys at the College Blueprint witnessed this and then invited them on to have the discussion on air. That was a show on WBTU at the time. And it was a productive conversation with a number of people. But then a year later, things rolled around and WBTU was no longer in operation. The College Blueprint wasn't broadcasting, and a tree reached out to me to see if we wanted to host it. So, of course, we did. We picked up the torch, and we changed things a little bit. We broke it in 2 parts. We had, an industry panel first, again with Dart and Tim, and Justice Bourne was on that one. And then we did an artist one. The first artists were M. Lotus Taylor, and Latrell. And it's grown from there, but we split it up, and the idea was to have these conversations are happening behind the scenes anyway, either backstage at events or off in the corner somewhere, and thought it was better to have them in public so everyone can be involved in them. And so we can, find the solutions together and push forward as a team. So
yeah, and what you're saying just now about like the sort of backstage conversations and all of that are happening, that's actually kind of what started me on the journey of covering hip hop in Boston, really. I was talking to artists, I would interview people from time to time, and then like when the tape recorder was off, people would start talking for real, about like the problems they were having. And that's why that article that Ari very graciously and kindly mentioned a couple years ago, I did interview a whole lot of different people around here, not nearly everyone, of course, and sort of tried to get a sense of, what was causing this discontent. Was there, really systemic kind of hostility to hip hop, especially in venues? That was sort of the focus of it. And that's kind of what spurred my coverage. And then the year later, I did a follow-up, and Sam was someone I interviewed. And that's kind of what started this out. And I did want to ask you, that's a conversation that I obviously didn't start. It's one that I was responding to. Mo Pope had been Facebooking about it, probably tweeting,
handing out unicorns.
Yeah, it was happening, it was out there. I didn't invent it. But I wanted to ask you, Sam, like, a couple years later, and you've been doing this for a few years too, where do you see things now? Like, what's your sense of sort of the situation now, like, and the city's attitude towards hip hop, and just generally maybe like the health of the scene?
Well, I think artistically the scene is it's going up and up and up and up, and the talent is there, the art is there. And those articles, thank you. I mean, that definitely brought it to the forefront of a lot of people's minds who weren't considering it. I'm not a promoter, so I can't 100% speak to what's going on in those emails and, you know, stuff like that. But I will say from what I've seen, there's a very healthy amount of shows, events, etc. Sometimes there's 4 in one night and you have to choose. They are happening a lot at more still like non-traditional venues, like breweries are stepping up. Bow Market's been big with Canopy Room. You're seeing them still at like, you know, RSVP for the address type situations. And that's for a number of reasons. I mean, hip hop cops are very real. We saw it Rolling Loud. They kicked a bunch of people off in New York this year. So there's stuff like that, but I do think there is a lot going on and a lot of venues are addressing it. I think I want to reiterate something Oompa said last year. A lot of people know that the business of hip hop is good and they're chasing the business, but they got to be ready to bring the culture into the door too, because those are two different things. And yeah, I will say I have, from talking to artists, I have heard, you know, maybe you'd reach out to a venue and try to do a local show and get told we're not booking hip hop. But then if an artist on a major or with a sort of national booking agency comes to town, all of a sudden they're doing hip hop. So there's some stuff like that to work out still.
Yeah. And then I feel like kind of parallel to that is obviously the conversation that you have been cultivating on your podcast with this annual kind of like reckoning, I guess. It's a reckoning. That's not the right word. But you know what I mean? So for you, like, how have you seen that evolve? How have the conversations in this scenario changed or not? That's
been incredible. I mean, we're here now, which is wild to me. And that's through a lot of hard work from everybody around the New England, a lot of thankless hard work, you know, done in silence a lot. And the conversation has really changed a lot. I mean, I think Bedlam said a couple years ago when it started first, we were sort of talking at people, but now we're more talking with people and we're like encouraging good habits, practices, behaviors, etc. At the beginning, it was very much like stuff like, hey, when you send an email, like introduce yourself, put a subject line, you know, leave your social media in it, maybe a bio, you know, like stuff that was like just general best practices. But now we're moving on to like bigger issues to tackle and people are ready. Yeah. So it's come a long way. Very cool. Well, I don't want to keep this from happening any longer, so I'm going to leave. And thank you so much for making this, helping to make this happen. Thank you. Thanks, and we'll welcome up our wonderful panelists. All right, well, welcome to y'all, and definitely welcome to all of you. It's really an honor to be hosting this conversation. The gravity of the moment is not lost on me. I mean, we started this conversation, you know, years ago, and it was happening, you know, quietly at first, and now it's deemed, you know, appropriate to have it in a public setting on a stage like this in a beautiful room like this. And thank y'all for coming out. What's that?
You printed notes.
Oh yeah, no, this is serious.
And they have bullet points.
Yeah. Let me get through the first couple, and then I'm gonna pass it off. So before we get going, I think it's important to outline like the scope and the goal of what we're talking about. As I said before, the artistry is through the roof. So salute to everybody pushing the needle there. This is more focused on like the business industry side of things. And the goal is to bring that convo to the forefront, pull back the curtain, help us all take steps forward together. This is advice for how to level up. And a lot of this conversation is going to be Boston-centric because this is really the entry point to the market. But it's applicable to any location, though. And I want to shout out to everyone doing work up in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, et cetera, all around here because there's a lot happening. And finally, like, please build with each other, you know, like you're all here because you're serious about this and you want to do things. So meet each other, meet these guys, like let's make moves. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce the panel here. To my right, we have Dart Adams. He is a historian, Bostonian, author, journalist, and a podcast host. You can get at him at Dart_Adams. To his right, we have Brandon Matthews, aka Bedlam. He is a guerrilla marketing pro who works with Show Off, Killer Boombox, and many other artists, labels, and companies. You can find him at Bedlam_Show Off. Finally, to his right, we have Jessica Richards, manager. She currently manages Latrell James, but the two of them often approach things from quite different perspectives. So it'll be very interesting to see this dynamic in real time tonight. You can.
Thanks for the drum.
Yeah. No, we got to drum it up. You can get her at JUSS_JRich. Latrell James. You guys sat in the order I had this pretty much too, which is nice. So to her right is Latrell James, producer, rapper, singer, active member of the New England hip hop scene. He just released the instrumentals from his last EP, Still, as well as a bonus track through Dust Collectors. You can get him at I am Latrell James on Twitter, at Latrell James on Instagram. And finally, last but not least, Oompa, poet, rapper, educator. Her album Cleo is out now. And just last week, she was named Live Artist of the Year at the BMAs. So at Oompa Out Loud is where you can find her. Clap it up for all of them, please. This is big. This is the fourth time we've done this. If you missed the first three, I strongly recommend listening to those because that's what we're building on here. You can just type LFOD Radio into any podcast app, and you will find that there. If you're tweeting or anything like that, hashtag state of NEHH. All right, we're going to get into it. And y'all can jump in how you feel. A couple are going to be directed specifically, but for the most part, just, we're having a conversation. So last year we spoke a lot about tiers, but it really seems to me to boil down to how hard you're working, and it's really a 24/7 biz. But it's important to work smart at the same time. So I was wondering if you could each share one tip you'd give to artists who feel like they're putting in the work, but they're just not seeing any results yet. Go for it.
I'll go first. I think that the most important thing when you're first starting off is just to kind of define, like I always say this, but define what success is to you, because that's really important, because you can't measure something that you don't know. So if you know that there's a specific goal that you have in hand, then you can work towards that and then make a new goal and then work towards that. You just don't want to continuously work to the abyss, because then you're going to always feel like you're not doing enough.
I actually learned this from Sam a couple of years ago. He called me out. But I think it's also if you can answer the question of, am I working on my craft? And the answer is yes. Are you giving everything to your craft? And the answer is yes. Are you working your ass off? And the answer is yes. Can I cuss now that we're not on the radio?
I mean, Thomas will have to edit it after the fact, but it's fine.
Go ahead, Thomas. Do your thing, baby. If the answer to all of those things is yes, then I think that it's important to measure where you were when you started and where you are at every point in time, because there's no progress. It's just what are you measuring? Like you're saying, you just have to learn to, as much as possible, be in the moment and know that even if you just got better at your one-liners from last year, that's a piece of progress to take note of.
Well, one thing is, I had to learn the hard way that sometimes when you set goals for yourself and you think that that's what you need to be measuring yourself by, you're actually wrong, and you're actually putting yourself in a bad situation to start out with. A lot of times what you're reaching for might not actually be where you need to go. And you need to just assess exactly what's happening with you, as opposed to measuring yourself by what other people are doing or what you think you need to be reaching for. Because otherwise you're going to be dissatisfied with any type of progress you make, and you're going to overlook it.
Word. Who wants to follow that?
That's it.
I think for me, it's research your surroundings. A lot of people will say that, they don't have this or they don't have that, but they really haven't done an adequate search of what is around them, what companies are here, what they're looking for, things of that nature. So really look at what's around you and see where you are and aren't taking advantage of before you really start to, complain about where you are. Because realistically, a company that you need to deal with could be down the street, and because you didn't do your homework, you didn't know that.
You, Latrell.
Everything's been said.
All right, we're going to start this next one with you then. So I was curious, too, just to set the scene a bit. I'm curious what you all think individually the biggest story of 2019 has been to you. whether that's a theme, a convo point, a development, etc.
You referring just directly to Boston?
Yeah, I mean, if you need to zoom out, that works, but more specifically here. But if there's a bigger, like,
I mean, I think here, I think finally people really just believe in themselves. I think that was the biggest difference. Like, I don't think people knew that they can actually do it. And like, I can say that for myself too. Like, I didn't ever think that I would be on a national Cheerios commercial campaign and doing that shit. Forgive me for cursing. But like, I just never thought that. But like, again, it's just literally seeing yourself there and then actually chasing after it. So like, I think people seeing Stiz, I think people seeing, you know, the Beers and other people as well. Anybody that's gaining any type of success, Justin Clancy, like, I think people seeing those people grinding, like, it's really inspired them, and we see that it's attainable now. So the next generation, you're gonna see 100+ more artists doing the same thing we did and better. So it's beautiful to me.
Thank you. Let's go to Oompa and then loop around.
I think this year was really beautiful to watch. Similar to what Latrell is saying, people take matters into their own hands. It's like I think a lot of us growing up, we looked at labels as the end all be all. Like, I still want to be Beyonce, but like, that's not gonna happen. So it's like, how do I be the best Oompa I could be? You know. So it's like I started measuring myself based on my past self, and I wasn't measuring laterally. I was just celebrating homies who were doing what they were doing. And so somebody might be gaining traction in this area, but I'm doing well over here. Or, you know, I might be doing this. And like, we all have something to learn from each other. And I think that we learn the power of each other and like celebrating each other in our own growth. And also, like I said, taking matters into our own hands. There are people who to this day maybe can't get a venue that they want, but they done turn somebody's living room upside down. They done turn a basement upside down. They put a series in a basement, you know, mold and all. And people show up every day and they sell that joint out, and somebody pay their bills off of that. And so I think that is the kind of nature, like, that is the kind of hustle and heart that pushes us all forward and makes us all grow and get better and want to be better. It's just that we roll up our sleeves and get it done. And so, yeah.
The story of 2019 to me is, so back in 2010, yeah, I'm going back the full decade.
Oh, man.
Back in 2010, I remember I had just like come out into the space or whatever, and I would have conversations with everybody outside of venues. It'd be me, Keys, and like DJ Alcide outside of like the Middle East, outside of Church, Boston, complaining about how we can't get X, Y, and Z to happen, or we can't get anybody popping on a national stage. Fast forward to 2012, we're having a different discussion. Fast forward to 2014, we're having a different discussion. Last summer, it was me, Keith, and Alcide, and we were discussing all these things at an event for the Boston Music Awards at the Verb Hotel, and all of our homies were like in attendance and doing well. And so it's like, what do we complain about now? So I think the story of 2019 is actual real progress. And being in a stage where it's like, all right, what do we want now?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is that everywhere else is starting to pay attention. You know, the brands are starting to get involved, the city's getting involved, you know, other companies are getting involved, record labels are here every week now, publishers are coming here, like they really are looking at Boston, and it's definitely due to a lot of people here doing their job, traveling, touring, doing those things, but it's also a lot with media and also with radio as well. As they've started to support tremendously, it's really started to cross over to other places, and now they're really paying attention to what's going on here.
I guess to piggyback off of Dar Adams, like I've seen less Facebook rants and Twitter rants about not being where they are, complaining. I personally hate complaining. Because like you can accomplish anything that you want to do if you stop focusing on other people's success. And if you figure out other avenues to be successful, or you find out other things to make an income off and create music, you know, that's success in your own right. And I see a lot of people, you know, venturing out to licensing now, finding out that there's different ways to use their voice to, you know, profit off of their artistry. And, you know, just a lot of more movements in Boston, more people excited about doing their own stuff for their own lane, to accomplish their own things that they want to accomplish. And I'm really proud of that for the artists that are continuously coming up with new ways to reinvent themselves.
Yo, Jess actually really hates complaining. Like, we had a dinner over this. She was like, yo, shut up. And I was like, you right, sis. She was like, so what are you going to do this year? And I said, oh, I'm going to show you. I got it, sis. Like, she really hates complaining.
It does nothing. Before we keep going, I want to let you guys know we're actually going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have questions for us, we're using an app called Slido, Slido. It's just a website. You don't need to download anything. You just go to slido.com, Slido, and then you enter the code HipHop17. So if you put your questions in there, Ari's going to be going through them, and she's going to pass them on to me, and we're going to, answer some of those at the end. So once again, slido.com. There it is. Do that. All right. So this next one it's going to start down at that end. So last year, at the end of our talk, Oompa, Latrell, and I discussed some hurdles in the year ahead. And there's one thing I wanted to circle back to. Oompa, you had been speaking about more long-term investments, specifically wanting to see grants and other benefactors, broadening their range and including artists from all walks of life. So as institutions... Are you all right?
Cool.
As institutions are responding to these conversations, we are seeing certain artists reaping benefits more than others, even some tokenism in place of true inclusion or understanding of the scene. So what would you like to see institutions like grant-giving foundations, award shows, etc., do differently to better integrate and lift up all of Boston's hip-hop artists?
That's a great way of framing the question so that I get to what I really care about, which is that I think that those institutions and such are finding ways to give money and resource to people who look like us and who do hip hop and et cetera. I think that they are doing that. They're moving in a generally good direction that I appreciate. I think my piece of feedback for them, however, is I think in order for us to get better as artists and as crafts people, I think that competition can be important. And I don't mean competition in this way that's like dog eat dog, but what I mean is like, let's build something based on merit and not the politics of advancement. So like don't just do things because it makes you look better, or you couldn't find other black people to do it, or you just need to collect as many people as you can so you can say that you did it. But like, let's actually build it based on merit, because I want to get better. I want to be better. I want to be a better grant writer. I want to be a better artist. I want to be a better teacher. And the way to do that is to not give me a trophy because I was the black person that applied who was the safest for you. But in fact, it's to give it to me because I deserve it. And to not give it to me when I don't deserve it, so I know how to go back and get it again the next time. So I think that's my feedback.
Or does anyone have anything they'd like to add to that?
I will pick. Well, go ahead.
I think everything Oompa said is 100% true, but I also think that, like, to start an artist off, a grant less than $30,000 ain't gonna help. At the end of the day, everything you do is expensive, from your visuals. By the time you shoot your visual and by the time you pay for the outfit, your ass is broke again, right? So like, we talking $30,000 to $50,000 to start an artist. So like with these, and also they should teach financial literacy, how to take care of that money and how to invest it into the right things. Like, I think you can give anybody a bunch of money, but nobody knows what to do with that money. So like, I think that's a problem that's not really being like addressed. But again, like, I still really do think that you can't just give somebody $5,000 and think that they're going to do it. You're going to need 6 more of those to really make a dent as an artist. So like, I think grants here should think more long-term investments into their artists instead of thinking of a short tax write-off.
Word. Yes?
Well, what I was going to say, but what Oompa said, I really value, because I think sometimes, especially in Boston and especially in the culture that we're in, we're in a very reactionary, inclusive, I guess, outrage kind of era right now. And I think that instead of kind of understanding like the Black community and understanding, just minorities, or, why do they need this money? What are they going to do with it? Like, what have they been going through? We can't just be like she said, like a token just to be there, because you're not really understanding the real issues in which that we're facing. And I think that's very important. And just because you're getting backlash because you are not inclusive doesn't make you having a bunch of Black people on stage or whatever solving the issue. We're thankful for the opportunity, of course, but we really, it doesn't really solve anything. And I don't think that we're learning anything from each other.
Gentlemen?
Oh, okay.
No, Oompa, yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm going to think of what I had to say. Yeah, all right.
All right. Tag back in whenever. All right, so on the flip side of that, there are a lot of resources and things like that out here for artists. I'm wondering if you guys could share what you think the most untapped resource you see is that isn't getting taken advantage of, that artists could go out and get after, like tomorrow.
Google.
Whoa.
Finesse these colleges.
So,
amen.
So to piggyback off what he just said, for years I've been having this discussion, I've been going to Berklee College of Music. I've been going to Harvard. The Hip Hop Archive exists there. Have you ever been? There's also Northeastern University, which is in my backyard. And I lived in this neighborhood, the South End, Lower Roxbury, for 44 years. And even though these colleges buy up parts of the city, chunk at a time, to the point where Huntington Avenue, they no longer acknowledges as Roxbury going down to the hospitals. They just call it the Longwood Medical Area. It's Roxbury.
Straight up. Straight up.
They don't give back to the community. So I've spoken at Berklee College of Music several times, and I'm like, here's an idea. How about you invest in the neighborhood that everybody lives in? These kids live on Mass Ave and don't realize that they're in a jazz mecca, or all the resources that are just right in that area, because they're insulated and isolated in this part of the city, and they barely ever go out of it unless it's to a gig. And Cafe 939 is right there, and everything else is connected. They don't have to go further down Mass Ave. They don't have to go down Boylston and Newberry unless they want to shop. And I just feel that they need to give back to the community and involve the community. I need to be seeing people that are artists and creatives in the community at these colleges and universities that have been in their neighborhoods their entire lives. It just makes sense to me.
So how would you suggest they go about tapping that? Like reaching out themselves and getting the ball rolling, or?
Well, I think there needs to be some type of meeting made where we talk to the people at these colleges and just get a kind of initiative going where that actually happens. How exactly it happens, I don't know, but it needed to happen 15 years ago.
Okay.
Sorry. In the meantime, though, if you're really trying to tax them, though, one of the things the college market is something I really like. I was talking to my friends the other day about this. Is like, hopefully nobody here works at a college that hired me before. But either way, if you did, thank you so much. And here we go. What I do every year, I have this, at this point, it's like 2,000 names in a database, and it changes over every year. But what I do is I go through the list of every college or institution I can get through, starting locally and then going as far as like North Dakota. I was in Arkansas, like mad random. But I try to think about my brand and who I speak to. And there's always a student organization with a budget that they don't know what to do with, that's bigger than your check currently, that will pay you that much money just to come up for 45 minutes to a show that they didn't plan well and they didn't really do anything for. But you get to do your art. Mostly, though, you get to pay your bills for a few months. And so I would recommend figuring, for me, right, like women's studies is a big one. Any Black oriented group, any feminine, any queer oriented group, anything that I speak to, I try to find those people who are in those departments who are going to hold me down and be like, and I pitch a show to them, I pitch an idea to them, and I say, look, you could bring me for some exorbitant amount of price, and they'll say, yeah, actually, we're going to figure that out in April. And then my whole April, my whole March, my whole February is filled up. So really you just got to go Google it though. Like, you have to do the work.
I will say, like, I think sometimes people forget, like, how much, like, you know, Boston is developing into, like, a tech hub. Yeah. There's a lot of music software companies here that actually don't know how to connect with artists, but I think that it's important to kind of try to open the door, especially Isotope has been trying to be a little bit more incorporated in the community, and help artists here a lot. There's other music software companies. There is small licensing companies. Obviously, like, that's how Latrell got the Cheerios commercial. So there's other things that are valuable here. I think that you have to think outside of the box that you think you need to be in.
I think a lot of people aren't using our stuff that they need more than they realize. We're in a college town with 1 million bars and clubs, which means we have 1 million DJs that play music at all of them. And the majority of the artists in the city, unfortunately, don't service their music. So they're upset, you know, that they're not getting a certain level of support, but they either, one, don't have a clean version, or two, don't service the record at all, which means that you pretty much taken the ability for that person to support you away from them. So I think that's one thing. I think on the coverage side of things, as much as people go crazy about, oh, I should be getting my music covered, this, that, and the third, a lot of these people really aren't hard to find. If you really just do your homework and research who's putting all these articles out and who the writers are and track them down on social media, make a relationship, show up at a networking event, you know, like, make yourself known. You know, these resources are here and they're around us, and there's people walking by you, sitting next to you right now. You just got to open your mouth and speak and, you know, have that conversation, and then, you know, you go from there.
Latrell, you have a resource? Oh, you said colleges, right? All right. Okay, so I'm going to throw one. What's that?
No, I'm still.
Okay. Do it into the mic.
No, I can't.
No. So I'm going to throw this at Jess and Latrell together. Here comes the drama.
Jess and Latrell together.
Nah. So last year, Latrell dropped a secret album, and you had to be at a release party to hear it. And it was an album, correct me if I get this wrong, but it was an album that you wanted to share with your fans, but not as a widespread release because you felt you had made some artistic leaps in the meantime. How do you guys work through something like that? Because artists are always growing and they value flexibility very highly, but on the business side, things are a lot more rigid. So how do you find that balance?
Of
getting, like, when a situation like that pops up where you've put a lot of time working on an album and then all of a sudden they're like, that's not the one, we're going to do another one.
Really simple. We're independent artists. We can pivot whenever we want to. There's no major investment in us, like, dictating us to go one direction. So, like, if something's not, like, if your spirit's not in it, we have full rights to move because, like, it's our budget we're putting up at the end of the day. If I want to put my money up, I'm going to put it into something that I wholeheartedly believe in. And the reason why I pivoted from that project was just simply because my spirit wasn't with it anymore. Like, I made it. It was a therapeutic album for me. But at the same time, I still wanted my listeners to hear it. But I didn't want it to be the art that represented me at this moment because I'm not that sad anymore. Like, I'm not going through those things anymore. But I hopefully, like, the people that do have it or people that do ask me for it, they hear it and, you know, they learn something from it. Like, literally, I only put out the Needs and Wants record because so many people asked me for it. So, like, at the end of the day, the power's in the people.
Yeah, I guess I will attest to that. I think that you have to be aware that artists evolve all the time because they experience things all the time. And sometimes, you know, the hard place that they were in or the joy that they were in creating something doesn't necessarily mean that it sustains itself for the test of time. And like you said, like, being independent, you can either repackage it up to something different, where you can use it as, like, a resource to pull in more fans, or you could just disregard it and just kind of move on and try to I guess create another story for your fans to kind of go through the motions with.
Okay, so, and I'd like to reach to Brandon for a piece here. So, for a lot of stuff, you know, when I was speaking about the rigidity on the business side, you do need a certain amount of lead out and time in advance to, you know, plan these things. So obviously you guys, you know, made this decision before you had too much in motion there. But, like, Brandon, someone like you, when should artists think about bringing you on board in something? How much lead time into the project so that's not a last minute thing?
I think everybody's different. I don't think everybody has the same approach, especially when you're independent. You have a lot of different things that you're going to utilize to try to create your buzz. So some people, they're reliant on, trying to go the radio route. Some want to go a more organic way, want to work, maybe, dealing with DJs, or they want to go, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, for me, it's more so just having enough lead time to have a conversation to figure out what we want to do or who I need to go and talk to. Because, again, everybody's different. So this artist might need, a completely different set of, things than this artist because they've already done this work and they're just getting to that point.
Okay. Throwing it back at you, Jess. As a woman working in hip hop, you have had a much different experience than your male peers. We've spoken at length about this in the past, but if you could pass one really good nugget of advice along to the women listening right now, what would that be?
I mean, I think it's always just to have confidence in yourself and really value, I guess, the wins that you can create for your artists, because people are not always going to value you because of what you look like, and it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, like, you can only continue to trust and believe in yourself and know that even though this person doesn't value me, I could still get through this, and I can get through another challenge, and I can get through another challenge because, I've been through this road and I know how to maneuver. And I think that that's always very important because, especially being a woman, like, men treat you as you're invisible or they treat you as a secretary. And even though you have probably more knowledge than them, they still treat you like they're beneath you. Especially if you're a woman of color, you're like on the bottom totem pole, unfortunately. But I like, again, like, as long as you continue to believe in yourself and know what your path is individually, you can, weather the storm.
Thank you. So before we keep going, I want to remind everyone one more time about that Slido thing. If you're hearing stuff here and you want to do that right there, Slido.com, hiphop17. I'd like to go back to the whole general panel and throw this at everybody. If we could zoom out for a second, leave Boston. We're looking at everything from the top down. What's the biggest overall industry change that artists need to be aware of that's taking place? Whoever wants to kick it off.
I think just the operation of getting music out has changed so differently. I mean, we have so many social networks that are adopting streaming and things like that people haven't even touched radio, but they're literally getting set up for radio off of TikTok. Like the integration of our technology into our music has really been the biggest change, and trying to find that next thing that's going to keep everybody's eyes has been the biggest challenge for everybody. But it's also helped so many people not have to go into the corporate machine as much, because now with the right plan and the right access and, with the way to get it done, you don't really need these companies, and eventually they come to you.
Word. It's you. Whichever one.
Okay. Well, I guess like what Brandon said, the way you consume music, there's different avenues to reach fans. And it's a gift and a curse because, the more that you're putting content out there, the more people demand more of you. They want to see more of you. They want to be in your life because they want to connect with you on a different level, versus music. And when you do, put out music, like people want, like we talked about this, like continuous streams of music. So, artists are kind of becoming a little bit more like robots than kind of artists, in a way, because you're constantly being demanded by millions of people, or even just a small portion of people that continuously want things out of you, whether that's music or just more content or more availability in their lives.
Yeah, you reach your like individual Netflix almost.
Basically. Sorry, I just want to piggyback off of what Brandon was saying, which is that, like, I don't know, one of the biggest shifts for me of late has been, like, I know what my big goal is, right? Like, it's out there and it's like abstract and I don't really know how to reach it. But I think that the thing that helps me every day is to know that, and this is like a shift that I think is happening in the industry, which is that a lot of people can be independent and make sustainable livings for themselves. And to know that, like, I think about my music, my art as my art, right? That's my baby. And then I think about the business of my art as a different thing. And I think of myself often as a small business with growing pains. And how do I get so big that eventually I can, if I want to, I sell a part of that business to someone, or somebody invests at this cost to me. Like, how do I think about it as a business and know when the right time for investors is, or what growth means to me, and what, but like what keeping independence means to me, and what sacrifices I'm willing to make, because I'm thinking about myself as a small business trying to grow into a massive business. So I think that a lot of people have maybe had that awareness of late too, that you don't need a machine to give you an advance that's really pretty, let you buy some chains and a car, and then you got to pay that money back, even if you got people who won't get that money back in your pocket, where I can go in my city and I can make X amount of money this year and reinvest X amount of money back into my business and grow that ×2 for the next year, or ×4 for the next year. So yeah.
Dart, what do you see? I know you see it all.
Difference being is that I'm a 44-year-old man, so I have to hear about what's happening like second and third hand. So I'm finding out about what's happening with TikTok from kids in my neighborhood. Like, I sound real old right now, don't I? I don't use emojis, Sam.
That's
I
wild.
use words when I text.
Dart, you can't say that. My mom uses emojis, okay? She's 50.
Use asterisks.
I can't do it. So this was the wrong question to ask me.
Okay. So it's your observation that everything is just moving too fast and you just gotta talk to the children? I
pretty much feel like everything is chaotic and things are moving so fast because, again, it's the speed of information technology has been doubling since like 1996, okay? To the point where they stopped mentioning it. So things are moving so fast that everybody's going for this, they're aiming for this, they're aiming for this, but it's like a cat and a laser pointer. So I stopped focusing and I just let stuff happen. And when it happens, I find out about it. Be water, my friend.
All right. Shout out to Bruce Lee. I really, yeah, all right. So we did post a general question on our social media, like if people had questions for you guys tonight. And one comment that was left that I thought was worth talking about, Rob left this. Even with, well, we remixed it a bit, but even with all the progress, we're still not seeing major labels and management groups with offices in this area. And what is it we're missing? A, and B, do you see that even happening?
I personally am glad that we don't have Rock Nation offices on Boylston Street or Newbury Street, because I'd have to go and yell at them every day, personally. Or I'd have to bark at somebody, Sam.
But you could get one of those hats.
I could just ask Static for one. Anyways, but the thing is that I feel as though there needs to be a real investment made into this region, is because of the talent that's here. But I don't feel that there needs to be a satellite office here. I just think there needs to be like one or two people that makes it down and comes down and takes inventory every month or 2 months or whatever, and then go the hell back to New York or LA. Everybody wants there to be an industry in Boston. In Boston? You want an industry here? You don't. What you want is you want the access and you want the look. And you want to know that there's somebody paying attention. You want that. You don't want the actual business here. You don't want the actual infrastructure here. You don't want the actual like corporate environment here. The reason why we've been able to thrive and do so much over the last decade is that we don't have to appease some corporate entity. That's why we've had the swath of artists and the beauty of like experimentation and the variety and individuality that we've been able to experience. I went to the Boston Music Awards not too long ago, and I got to see so much on the stage right after the other. And I was just like in awe that I'm glad that I'm 44 and I get to see this, being somebody who was around from the early days of hip hop, growing in Boston from New York. So I'm good that there's no like corporate environment in Boston as far as the music is concerned.
I have a question for you, Dart. Sorry, I don't mean to take your role, Sam. But then how do you keep artists from the pain of feeling like they've hit the ceiling in the city and now they have to leave the city and give to the economy there?
Well,
travel is great, but you can either spend X amount of money to travel every month, or there could be an industry accessible to you.
I feel as though that's inevitable anyway. If there was that corporate environment here, cats would still be having to go to LA. They still have to go to New York. Like I saw what Millie's wrote on Twitter, but the thing is, everybody's wants and needs are different. What Millie's needs for his career, with how it's been progressing over the last 3-4 years, he needs to be out. Stiz needed to be out. Bia needed to be out. I'm never leaving. I'm gonna die here. That's a good thing for me. I don't need to go anywhere. But everybody doesn't have the same wants or needs. But if you need that, then you should absolutely go. I don't think that. I think we're past the time where people get mad because somebody had to leave Boston. If Guru didn't leave, then we wouldn't be on the stage right now.
Word.
Thank you.
Do any of y'all still think there should be management offices or any label stuff here?
I do.
Okay.
I 100% do.
We've had this discussion before.
Well, for my business, that's my clientele. So, yes. But on the flip side of it, I mean, it's an industry. You need it. You're here to make your art, but at the end of the day, you're here to make money. So let's not be stupid here. Like, it's a business at the end of the day. So if you don't want that business around you, you're crazy. Like, let's look at the value of this market. We're the number 7 market in the country for radio. Why wouldn't we want companies here to take advantage of all this talent that we have? The problem that Boston has right now isn't lack of talent. It isn't lack of resources. It's lack of representation. Right now, if I got an album to come out, you can come to me and a very select few other people to get your music exposed. That makes no sense. No management companies, no independent labels, nobody out here really making money, at least publicly, off music. There's a couple of small entities who, if, like she says, use Google, find out who they are, go work with them. But for the most part, if we had more of an infrastructure of income here, we wouldn't have half the complaints that we have. You look at these other cities, everybody wants to use Atlanta as an example. But this person paid that person and paid that person and made money that way, and they all found ways to make money. That's business.
So what do you think we're missing that's stopping a major from opening up shop?
I don't think we need a major to open up shop. Somebody needs to just do it themselves here. The resources are here. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing it. It's just the mentality of nobody here really wants to, well, not no one. There's a few, myself, her, a few others who don't want to be in the front. But for the most part, a lot of these guys who are trying to represent other people, the real agenda is kind of themselves in a lot of ways. So what we need is a lot more professionals.
We're not ready for that.
People who can do the job. I'm a person who cares about professionals. It ain't about whether you hire me. It's about bringing in somebody who can do the job and do it right. So that way, every time you go and you release music, you go and you spend that money and you don't feel bad about spending it. The first time you come out and you spend money and someone doesn't do the job, you may never spend $1 again. And now you just ruin money in the market, not for yourself, but for everybody going forward. It's a business at the end of the day, and you got to treat it as such. That's what it is.
And I will say, like, when is it going to be enough? If we open up a business here, then like, where's all the major press areas are either in New York or in LA. The major public licensing companies are in New York or in LA. So, you know, you're still going to have to travel regardless if somebody's here. And then, you know, just because you have labels there doesn't technically mean anything. You know, there's labels in Atlanta. You know, there's still artists struggling in Atlanta. There's always going to be artists struggling. Like, do you want access to a label here just to harass them personally, to take a picture so you could put on Instagram personally? Like, what is the end goal? Like, is it really access? Because if it was really access, then you would take the time to go out to the places that have access. So it kind of just seems like kind of a laziness type of thing.
Okay. Anyone else have it? So Rob's follow-up question, this is a little tamer. Like, do you see a major touching down? We've kind of established we don't necessarily need or want it.
I don't understand.
There's like 3 of them, yeah. But like, do you see like someone that exists, be like, oh, there's enough going on here that we should open up shop?
No.
I mean, like,
Sure.
majors have enough money to visit who they want to visit.
Yeah.
So if they want to visit you, they will.
will.
I mean, like, they'll come on an airplane, they'll set up a meeting, they'll talk to you, or they'll pay for you to go to a major city.
You
So
can get flued out.
yeah. So I don't want to.
You got that one, Dart. That was from like 2018.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You got
Okay.
it.
IG
Yeah,
honey.
thanks for telling me. Because I'm old.
No. It's
Once starts saying cap, it's out. We're done.
No cap.
So Rob, there's your answer. And like once again, that was from our social media. If you guys have questions, Slido.com, hiphop17. Before we get out of here, what? All right. So we've talked a lot about. I think we have time for both of these questions, actually. So we want things to keep pushing. Everyone's been giving advice tonight, but I think it's important to frame it as, where is this advice meant to push things? So if you guys could share, like, what is your ideal situation here for you? Like, we know it's never going to be in Atlanta or New York or in LA, but like, what do you imagine Boston could become as a hip hop city? Like, what do you want from it? Live scene, national artists, like, what do you guys want?
I think what I want is exactly what's happening, which is that people believe that they can be artists. People could find sustainable ways to be artists, that the people who culturally matter to us can also accept what we do as relevant to pushing the people, the culture, the energy forward, that, like, whatever your dream is in this thing, that if you're aligned in purpose, you could get there. No matter how slow or fast the grind is, you could get there, and you don't have to sell yourself to anything. You don't have to sell yourself short. That nobody has to be bitter at 45, 47 years old because they couldn't do anything in the city. That no matter how many times you have to adjust the goalposts, you could get to one. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's what's happening now. And I think, like, it's like all the people here and not here and who don't even know this is happening, everybody has a part to play. And I think that as long as everybody finds their part and really believes that their part is a valuable part to have, and they play that part and they play their position, I think we can get to a place where that happens. Like, if a major comes here, great, as long as they don't roll no more through Roxbury than Northeastern has, I'm good. Like, if a major never comes here, but they come and touch down on the people who are really trying to get to the crossover, then I hope that they do that. You know what I mean? But mostly I just hope that everybody gets to live the thing that they say they want to do, and if they hustle right and if they do what the hell they got to do, that they could get to that. And that's it. Yeah. Thank you, Keith.
You want to just go down the line?
Yeah, you reiterate that question.
Yeah, so you've been giving advice all night and dropping gems here, but where do you want things to get pushed to? What is your ideal situation in Boston? What do you imagine it could become as a hip-hop city?
I mean, I think it's becoming what I wanted it to be when I first started, which was like, I don't even remember, sheesh. But shout out to Keith, because he definitely booked me for my first show here. But legit, I think it's just the fact that there's so many different collectives and people just really just pushing at the moment. And like, specifically, I'll point out Van Buren just for the fact that those are the homies. Like,
they're going hard.
I seen Jess knows, she's seen the mud. We seen the mud with them. So like, to see what they're doing now, and Keith's booked them for a show too. So like, just seeing what they're doing and how people are like attacking it. Like, people are really working on their brands. People are really working on the artistic side. Like, if you really study what VB's doing, they really got an infrastructure over there. There's an engineer, there's producers, there's artists, there's people that handle the DJing. It's really a system. People are learning. So like, my ideal of Boston is what it's becoming right now, because like, I feel like we can be a bunch of DIYers that go get it. And like, that's what it's really going to be talked about, is the fact that we don't have these majors here, but we still out here getting this money and we still getting the same attention that these other artists are getting. I think we can do it. I think we are doing it. So like, I don't think we should diverge from anything we're doing right now.
A hard clap. Just, I guess, to piggyback off of those two, like, I want artists to wake up one day and you know, be okay with saying, like, I want to be an artist and I know I can do it. And, you know, if I do X, Y, and Z, I can be successful in my own right. And like Latrell said, like, you know, having no labels here is sometimes a gift and a curse, because you learn how to hustle more. And that's never a bad thing. I mean, if you can hustle 5 times or 5 different ways, like that's important. So when a label comes, like, you know how to even hustle even more now, because you have a bigger bag to deal with. So I think that understanding, like, you know, I want to see more artists take initiative to understand their art and how to profit different ways with your art. You don't just always have to sell to your consumer. There's different ways that you can make money off of music, especially if you're just a producer. There's still ways to make money. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, shows still need music, you know? Everything needs music. So I feel like more artists, I guess, thinking outside of the box when it comes to what they want their music to be displayed as and how to make income from their music in different ways.
I think Boston's definitely started to become more of what I wanted to see from it. On the business side of things, people are definitely getting a lot more entrepreneurial. They're not waiting on handouts. They're just like, you know what? You don't want to do it? I'm going to do it myself. And I love that. Also, I believe the collaborative efforts have definitely gotten a lot better. I've seen more groups of people kind of mix and make music over the last few years than I've probably ever seen here. So I think that people are definitely doing a lot more with each other and getting out of their comfort zone, and that helps us all.
So, you know what's coming. Back when we used to complain about what we didn't have and what we wish we would see, like going back 2007, 8, 9, the cities surpassed all the stuff that I hoped I'd see already. So pretty much I have to figure out a new thing that I want to see happen. Like, I did a video on Instagram where I was downtown crossing, and it was the guys from Nightworks, and they were doing Illuminous in the middle of the downtown crossing in the financial district, playing beats at night in the winter in Boston. And it was a beat culture event. And this is stuff that happened in LA and New York, and I'd be like, man, I wish we could have that. Fast forward to 2019, and I'm sitting there, and it's happening. Or me talking about, I wish that we would have more movements. Like I said on when we had these back in the days, like, we need more movements. Back in 2014, I said that. And then I'm watching Van Buren perform at the BMAs, and Felix just won an award. And Ricky Felix is out there in a suit. And I'm like, yo, it's happening. And I'm looking around, I'm like, it's happening. All the stuff that I wanted to see is happening. All the homies are here. So again, I have to rethink what it is I'd like to see Boston become now, because it's already surpassed my hopes from the past decade.
It's fire.
That means a lot coming from you, by the way.
I'm old.
No, I'm not continuously calling you old. That ain't this.
I am.
Okay, that's because you said it. But it just means a lot. Because, also, you just seen mad shit. Like, I had a dream one day. I told him this. I had a dream one day that there was this music center. It was like the record company, but it had a basketball court in the middle. And then there was a little like a Boston museum of music. And it was actual old Dart Adams. And he ran it. And he came in like, do you know where you come from? Da, da, da. And it's like, but it's just like dope that we don't have to wait till we get there for you to have what you want. Like, like that's just really dope. So that's it.
I love that.
That's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. All right. So to to wrap things up, there's a bunch of people here tonight who came here because they want to soak up, this knowledge and, get a feel for things. And they're all at different stages, and whether they're fans or they want to get involved as artists or managers or promoters or anything. What's one thing, we'll start with you, Dart, and go down. What's one thing everyone in here tonight could do that would make a difference for this scene?
Continue to support it. If you continue to support the scene, then it's going to make it very real to the artist and the people who have venues and everybody else that, there's actually something here. Because people come out and they're vocal and they spend their money and they're actively supporting this thing. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what people go by. You can write something off if people don't show up. But if people are there, you can't ignore them. And if people want it, you can't ignore what the people want. Everybody will always cave to the needs and wants of the people. That's history.
I think the networking component is the one thing that helps people the most, in my opinion. In this room right now, when you get done listening to us, say hello to 10 people in the room. You never know who you're going to talk to who might help you get from point A to point B. And I think that if we take that behavior and utilize it everywhere that we go, you'll have a crazy network at the end of it.
I think just like Dart said, just like showing up and talking to people. Like, I know we live in a social media age, but it doesn't replace going up to a human and talking to a human. And I think people take that for advantage sometimes. Like, if you can't connect with somebody, writing a scathing, Instagram post underneath their post is really not a way to connect with people. But if you have something to say to them, why don't you go to an event and share your thoughts with them so you guys can come to a common ground and, show up to events, show up to anything that the artist is doing that you support, because it's important. That's how they make their livelihood. So if you want to continue to see them rise, then you have to be there.
Yeah, show up. I mean, a retweet's cool, but I'd rather you buy a ticket. It's just the truth of the matter. And not just retweet it. I mean, tell your homie to come too. Don't support something half-ass. If you support something, believe in it, right? We all gonna go to this show tonight. That's how you support at the end of the day. It's not about, this person got 98 retweets. There's people with 1,000 retweets that can't get 50 people in the venue. So the difference is people that show up, people that care, and it starts with all of us. So my thing for the last 2 months is I've literally showed up to random shows in the last 2 months. I caught VB and Stiz at House of Blues. I caught VB at ICA the other day too. Just randomly showing up, because at the end of the day, you being there, them feeling that love, that's what really pushes people forward. So when I see a Dart or when I see Keith at a show that, make me feel good. I feel I'm bringing out the right people, and the right people will support me. So just show up. Stop making excuses.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's said. I also think that I guess it's a piggyback off of something that just happened, but I said earlier, I feel like everybody has a part to play, and I think that one suggestion, one practical thing for me is the moment when you're ready to complain or be sad about the state of music in New England. I think the next logical thing to do that could be helpful to everybody is to think about what your role is in that. So sometimes you can't put up 100, but can you put up 15? Can you put up time? Can you do an event? Can you connect this artist to somebody? Can you show the person next to you the music of one artist? Because the most powerful way for I think people to understand what's happening is for you to show them you don't care about me, but if you care about me, right, and you tell him, then now he cares even more because he cares about you. So that's one of the most powerful things you could do for an artist, especially, or for a scene, is just to validate it or just to put your homie on. So I think that just thinking about what your role is to play and then playing that part. If you're invested enough to complain, you're invested enough to do something different. So just do that different thing.
Thank you. So I realize this is a potentially dangerous question, but super quickly, is there anything? Oh no, real quick, one sentence. Is there anything you wanted to say tonight that we didn't lob up to you?
Stop complaining.
Please stop.
Also, can I just 2 quick things? I'm gonna shut up, I promise. But like one, like as an artist, like I think stop thinking that you know people based on their art. And like if you want to get to know them, get to know them. But like don't think that you know me because of the music I make. You might get some fraction of that, but like it's not the totality of my person. Totality of my person, you better go ahead. Okay, and then the second thing I want to say too is like on the other end is like if you see your homies like ascending in what way makes sense to them, like don't tell them. Like I have a lot of people who have either said, mostly people don't come to me and say what they got to say to me, so they say it around people and it comes back because people don't hold water. But like don't think that people are selling out or whatever. People are just trying to find their way. Like they're just trying to figure out what they value and what makes sense to them. So lift people up. Like don't continue to knock people down, and don't think that because you put it on Facebook and you're not friends with them. Boston's small enough that you can see that, and I may let it roll off my shoulders, but I don't need that energy to fight. Just put something positive in my bucket. Like don't put something negative in there. Don't make me fight more than I have to, because I'm still representing you at the end of the day and us. So yeah.
Word. All right. Thank you. So thank you to all you guys for coming up here. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the guests, WBUR, Cityspace, the whole LFOD squad, and everybody in New England who's helped us get to this point where they're like, maybe we should listen to what they have to say. You know, maybe this is something worth hearing. So we really appreciate all of that. I got to do one thing. A lot of people have mentioned records, servicing records. Submissions at LFODradio.com. If you have clean records, please send them over.
Clean versions.
That's how I met pretty much everyone up here. So, yeah, just shout out to y'all. Thank you for everything.